Senator Schiff. As of 6 a.m. this morning, the intelligence community has opened a formal counterintelligence investigation into your conduct during your tenure as chairman of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard's words detonated across the Senate Intelligence Committee hearing room with the precision of a cruise missile strike. No warning, no preamble, just the cold professional announcement that a sitting United States Senator, a man who'd spent years positioning himself as America's guardian against foreign threats, was now under investigation for being compromised by those very same foreign powers. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. Adam Schiff froze mid-sentence, his prepared attack on Tulsi's questionable judgment and concerning ties dying in his throat. His hand raised to emphasize whatever point he'd been about to make about her fitness to serve as DNI stopped moving. His mouth hung slightly open. For a man who'd made a career out of television appearances and carefully crafted sound bites, Adam Schiff was for perhaps the first time in his political life completely speechless. The Senate Intelligence Committee hearing room, normally a place of careful diplomatic language and measured responses, exploded into absolute pandemonium. Senators were on their feet. Staff members were frantically typing. The media section erupted into chaos. Phones out, cameras. Swinging reporters shouting questions over each other. Chairman Mark Warner's gavel was banging uselessly, the sound lost in the commotion. Tulsi Gabbard sat calmly behind the witness table, her hands folded, her expressions serene. She'd delivered thousands of intelligence briefings during her military career. She'd testified before Congress dozens of times. She'd been attacked, smeared, and slandered by the very man sitting across from her. She'd waited 6 years for this moment, and she was going to savor every second of it. What? Schiff finally found his voice, but it came out higher and shakier than his usual prosecutorial tone. This is outrageous. Mr. Chairman, this is clearly retaliation for my opposition to her nomination. This is exactly what I warned about when I voted against confirming her as DNI. She's weaponizing the intelligence community against Senator Tulsi, interrupted her combat veteran's voice, cutting through his panic like a knife through silk. This investigation was initiated on November 8, 2024, 3 days after the election and more than 2 months before I was confirmed as Director of National Intelligence. It was opened by career intelligence community inspectors general from multiple agencies following a comprehensive review of unauthorized disclosures of classified information during the 2017 through 2023 period. Opened a folder marked with the highest classification stamps. Top secret, SECI. No foreign, sensitive compartmented information. No foreign nationals. The kind of intelligence that could only be discussed in a sensitive compartmented information facility. The kind that came from the most sensitive sources and methods. The investigation encompasses systematic unauthorized disclosure of classified information, potential foreign influence operations conducted through intermediary entities, abuse of Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act processes, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to defraud the United States. Tulsi pulled out what appeared to be phone records with specific dates and times highlighted in yellow. Over a 6-year period from 2017 to 2023. The intelligence community documented 127 instances where classified information from closed-door intelligence committee briefings appeared in media reports within hours of those briefings concluding. Phone records obtained through lawful national security investigation warrants show a consistent pattern. You leaving the sensitive compartmented information facility, immediately calling journalists at CNN, MSNBC, The New York Times, and The Washington Post, and those same journalists publishing articles containing classified information within hours of your calls. She looked directly at Schiff, her eyes hard. You leaked classified information 127 times. Senator, you compromised intelligence operations, you burned sources, you damaged national security, and you did it all while presenting yourself on television as America's defender against foreign threats. The room had gone from chaotic to deadly silent. Every eye was on Tulsi and Schiff. Every camera was recording. This wasn't just a political attack. This was a former House Intelligence Committee member, now the nation's top intelligence official, accusing a sitting senator of systematic espionage. Senator Tom Cotton, a veteran himself, and one of the Intelligence Committee's most hawkish members, leaned forward into his microphone. Director Gabbard, are you saying Senator Schiff leaked classified information 127 times? Yes, Senator Cotton. The pattern is consistent, documented, and irrefutable. Each instance involved classified briefings. He attended phone calls to journalists immediately afterward, and publication of classified details within hours. The damage assessment conducted by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence estimates these leaks compromised operations valued at approximately $180 billion resulted in the emergency extraction and relocation of 7 human intelligence sources and forced the abandonment of multiple collection methods that took years to develop. She pulled out another document. This one with heavy redactions, but substantial portions still readable. But the most damaging evidence isn't the phone records or the publication timeline. It's what our foreign adversaries said about it. Tulsi displayed what appeared to be a National Security Agency intelligence report. This is a translated excerpt from an intercepted communication between 2 officers of Russia's SVR. Their foreign intelligence service dated March 2019. The communication was lawfully collected under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act as part of routine monitoring of Russian intelligence officers operating in the United States. She began reading, her voice steady and clinical. The American congressman continues to be a valuable source of information. After each classified briefing regarding our operations, he provides details to media contacts within hours. He believes he is damaging the American president. He does not realize he is damaging American intelligence capabilities. His leaks have revealed collection methods we did not previously understand. His access to classified briefings combined with his compulsion to leak makes him a useful idiot for our purposes. We do not need to recruit him. His ideology and ego do our work for us. The silence that followed was absolute. They called you a useful idiot. Senator Schiff. Russian intelligence officers, the same adversaries you claim to be fighting, were laughing at you, discussing how your leaks helped them understand American intelligence methods. You thought you were hurting President Trump. You were actually helping Russia. Senator Marco Rubio, another Intelligence Committee member, spoke up, his voice tight with anger. Director Gabbard, the senator, has spent years accusing others, including you, of being compromised by Russia. Are you telling us that he was actually helping Russian intelligence? I'm telling you what the intelligence shows. Senator Rubio, whether he was a witting or unwitting asset is for investigators to determine. But the SVR communications are explicit. They benefited from his leaks. They considered him useful, and they specifically noted they didn't need to recruit him because his ideology and ego made him volunteer the information freely. Tulsi organized her papers with deliberate precision. But Russia isn't the only foreign power that benefited from Senator Schiff's conduct. We also need to discuss the Chinese money. She reached for a second folder. This one labeled Foreign Financial Flows. Edbuck Network. Adam Schiff's face had gone from red with indignation to pale with fear. His chief of staff sitting behind him was frantically typing on his phone. His lawyer, when had a lawyer appeared, was whispering urgently in his ear, trying to get him to invoke his Fifth Amendment rights and stop participating. But Schiff, who'd made his entire career out of never backing down from a camera or a microphone, couldn't help himself. This is a witch hunt. He managed to sputter. This is political persecution I have dedicated my career to. To what, Senator? Tulsi interrupted. And for the first time, real emotion crept into her voice. To defending America. To protecting national security. To upholding your oath. She leaned forward slightly. In 2019, you went on national television and called me a Russian asset. You questioned my loyalty to the United States. You tried to destroy my career because I dared to question the endless wars that you and your defense contractor donors profit from. You smeared me as a traitor while wrapping yourself in the flag. Her voice got quieter, more intense. But I'm a combat veteran, Senator. I served in Iraq. I wore the uniform of the United States Army. I risked my life for this country. You dodged the draft. The closest you've ever come to combat is attacking political opponents on cable news. She opened the second folder. So, let's talk about who's really compromised by foreign powers. Let's discuss Ed Buck, your largest donor, and where his money actually came from. Let's talk about the Chinese intelligence operation that's been funding your campaigns for years. And let's talk about why you've consistently voted to protect Chinese interests while attacking anyone who questioned your loyalty. Senator Schiff looked like he might be sick. and Tulsi Gabbard, the former congresswoman he called a Russian asset. The combat veteran he'd smeared the intelligence professional he'd tried to block from becoming DNI. Wasn't done. She had 3 more folders. And all of them had Adam Schiff's political obituary written in them. Tulsi opened her first folder with the methodical precision of someone who'd spent 20 years in military service. She knew how to present intelligence. She knew how to build a case. And she knew that Adam Schiff, for all his television appearances and political savvy, had no defense against what she was about to present. Let me start by establishing the pattern because patterns don't lie. Individual instances can be explained away. Coincidences happen, but 127 instances over 6 years. That's not coincidence. That's systematic betrayal. She projected a comprehensive timeline on the screens throughout the hearing room. It showed dates, times, classified briefings, phone calls, and media publications in parallel columns. This is what systematic unauthorized disclosure of classified information looks like when you map it out. Every one of these 127 instances follows the exact same pattern. Step 1: Classified briefing occurs in the House Intelligence Committee Schiff. Senator Schiff, then Congressman and committee chairman, attends. Step 2: Briefing concludes. Members exit the Schiff where electronics are prohibited. Step 3: Between 15 and 45 minutes after exiting the Schiff, Senator Schiff's phone records show outgoing calls to journalists at major media outlets. Step 4: Between 2 and 8 hours after those phone calls, articles appear in CNN, MSNBC, The New York Times, or The Washington Post, containing classified information discussed in the closed-door briefing. This pattern repeats 127 times. Senator Tom Cotton leaned forward. Director Gabbard, how did you establish that the classified information in these articles came from those specific briefings? Multiple methods. Senator, first, we conducted a content analysis comparing what was discussed in each classified briefing. We have transcripts and recordings of all Schiff briefings with what appeared in subsequent media reports. The correlation is exact. Details that were only shared in those briefings appeared verbatim in articles hours later. Second, many of these briefings involved very specific compartmented intelligence programs. Only members of the Intelligence Committee and a handful of cleared staff had access. When details of those programs appeared in media, the pool of potential leakers was extremely small. Third, and most importantly, we have the phone records. Tulsi displayed what appeared to be call logs. These are Senator Schiff's phone records for the 6-year period from 2017 to 2023. Obtained through lawful national security investigation warrants. Let me show you just one example. But this pattern repeats 127 times. January 15, 2019, 200 p.m. Classified briefing on Russian intelligence operations concludes. 2:23 p.m. Schiff calls Jake Tapper's producer at CNN. Call duration 19 minutes. 6:30 p.m. CNN reports. Sources say classified briefing revealed new details about Russian operations targeting Trump campaign. March 7, 2019, 1000 a.m. Classified briefing on Chinese cyber capabilities ends 10:34 a.m. Schiff calls New York Times reporter. Call duration 14 minutes. 4:15 p.m. NYT publishes classified assessment shows China's growing cyber threat. May 22, 2019, 300 p.m. Classified briefing on Middle East intelligence operations concludes. 3:18 p.m. Schiff calls MSNBC producer. Call duration 23 minutes. 8:20 p.m. Rachel Maddow reports. Classified intelligence reveals concerning developments using details from that afternoon's briefing. She looked up from the records. This pattern continues for 127 documented instances. Same sequence every time. Classified briefing. Phone call to journalist. Article with classified details. The only variable is which journalist he called and which outlet published. Senator Marco Rubio spoke up. Director, you mentioned you have more than just the pattern. What other evidence confirms these leaks came from Senator Schiff? We have the journalist's notes and communications. Senator, in September 2024, as part of this national security investigation, FBI executed search warrants on the personal devices and communications of 3 journalists who'd received these leaks. Under the Privacy Protection Act, We can only do this when there's probable cause that the journalist was involved in criminal activity or national security violations. The warrants were approved by FISA court judges. She pulled out what appeared to be evidence from those searches. From those searches, we obtained the journalist's notes about their source. Let me read some excerpts from CNN producer's notes dated March 2019. Source: Congressional Intelligence Committee access. Very senior, motivated by stopping Trump, provides detailed classified info about Russia investigation. Extremely reliable, says he's protecting America from compromised president. From New York Times reporter's notes, May 2019. Source has highest level clearance, sits on Intelligence Committee, passionate about exposing what he sees as Trump's Russia ties, will continue providing classified details from briefings. Asks that I never reveal his identity because he's protecting national security. From MSNBC producer's communication log, July 2019. Schiff called again, more classified details about Mueller, evidence that wasn't made public. He's furious about Barr's handling, wants American people to know what's really in classified materials, will keep feeding us information. Tulsi looked directly at Schiff. They wrote your name in their notes. Senator. They documented your motivations. They recorded your calls. You weren't an anonymous source. You were Adam Schiff, chairman of the House Intelligence Committee. Systematically leaking classified information because you thought you were saving democracy. Representative Raja Krishna Mori, one of the Democratic members of the committee, looked uncomfortable but asked, Director Gabbard, what was the damage from these leaks? You mentioned $180 million in compromised operations. Yes, Congressman. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence conducted a comprehensive damage assessment. The leaks caused multiple categories of harm. Intelligence sources compromised. 7 human intelligence sources. People who risked their lives to provide information to the United States had to be emergency extracted and relocated when details Senator Schiff leaked allowed foreign governments to identify them. 3 of those sources were in Russia, 2 in China, 2 in the Middle East. All 7 now live under assumed identities because Senator Schiff couldn't keep classified information confidential. Collection methods exposed. 12 different intelligence collection methods. Technical capabilities that took years and billions of dollars to develop were compromised when Senator Schiff leaked details that allowed adversaries to understand how we were collecting against them. Those methods had to be abandoned and replaced at enormous cost. Allied relationships damaged. 6. Allied intelligence services, including Five Eyes partners, formally complained to U.S. intelligence leadership about leaks of information they'd shared with us in confidence. Some reduced their intelligence sharing with the United States because they couldn't trust that classified information would remain classified. That damage persists today. Operations terminated. 15. Ongoing intelligence operations had to be terminated prematurely when Senator Schiff's leaks alerted targets that they were under surveillance. Years of work and millions of dollars were wasted. The total estimated cost, including lost intelligence, compromised sources, terminated operations, and replacement of collection methods, exceeds $180 million. She pulled out a classified damage assessment with some sections visible. But the financial cost isn't the worst damage. Lives were put at risk. Intelligence capabilities were degraded. American national security was damaged. And it was all done by a man who simultaneously appeared on television claiming to be defending national security. Senator Cotton's voice was hard with anger. Director Gabbard, in your professional opinion as the Director of National Intelligence and a former member of the House Intelligence Committee, is there any legitimate reason? Any possible justification for leaking classified information 127 times? No, Senator, there is no justification. If Senator Schiff disagreed with intelligence community assessments, he had proper channels. He could have requested declassification reviews. He could have written reports using unclassified summaries. He could have briefed Gang of 8 leadership in secure settings. He could have raised concerns with inspectors general. What he couldn't do, what no one can do, is unilaterally decide to disclose classified information to journalists. That's not whistleblowing. That's espionage. That's betrayal of the oath he took to protect classified information. Tulsi organized her papers, but perhaps the most damning evidence isn't what we found in American records. It's what our adversaries said about it. She pulled out several NSA intelligence reports. The National Security Agency, as part of its lawful foreign intelligence mission, monitors communications of foreign intelligence officers operating against the United States. Between 2017 and 2023, NSA intercepted multiple communications where foreign intelligence services discussed Senator Schiff's leaks. She displayed the first intercept on screen, heavily redacted, but with key portions visible. This is from March 2019. Two Russian SVR officers discussing American political developments. I'll read the unredacted portions. Russian Officer 1. The American congressman on their intelligence committee continues to provide valuable information through his media leaks. Russian Officer 2. He is witting of our use of this information. Russian Officer 1. No, he believes he is hurting Trump administration. He does not understand he is revealing American intelligence collection methods to us. His leaks showed us how Americans intercepted. Redacted. We have now adjusted our communication security accordingly. He is perfect useful idiot motivated by ideology protected by position unaware of damage he causes. The hearing room was silent except for the sound of cameras clicking. They called you a useful idiot. Senator Schiff. The same Russians you claimed to be fighting against. The same adversaries you accused others, including me, of being sympathetic to. They were using your leaks to understand American intelligence capabilities. She displayed another intercept. This one is from Chinese Ministry of State Security officers. July 2020. MSS officer. The American Intelligence Committee chairman's press leaks continue to be valuable. His most recent disclosure revealed redacted, which explains how Americans detected our redacted. We have modified our operational security. Second MSS officer. Should we establish direct contact? First MSS officer. No need. His political motivations make him volunteer information freely. Direct contact would only risk exposure. Better to let him continue believing he serves American interests while actually serving ours. Tulsi looked directly at Schiff. The Chinese concluded they didn't even need to recruit you. Senator, you were volunteering classified information freely. They just had to read CNN and the New York Times to get intelligence about American collection methods. Senator Rubio spoke up again. Director, you mentioned there were 127 leaks. How many of those can be definitively traced to Senator Schiff? All 127. Senator, we have the pattern evidence briefing phone call publication for all of them. We have journalists' notes identifying him as the source for 34 of them. We have intercepts of foreign intelligence services discussing information that appeared in 23 of the leaked articles. And we have Senator Schiff's own statements. In some cases, she pulled out what appeared to be television transcripts. On March 22, 2019, Senator Schiff appeared on CNN and discussed details from a classified briefing that had occurred 3 days earlier. When asked how he knew these details, he said, and I quote, "As chairman of the Intelligence Committee, I have access to classified information that I wish I could share with the American people. But I can't because of classification rules." Then 2 hours after that CNN interview, an article appeared in the Washington Post containing the exact classified details he'd referenced. The article cited sources with knowledge of classified intelligence. Senator Schiff was the source. He referenced the classified information on TV, then immediately leaked it to the Post. Toy closed her first folder. Mr. Chairman, I've established the pattern of systematic leaks. 127 instances over 6 years. $180 million in damage. 7 sources compromised. Multiple collection methods exposed. Foreign adversaries benefiting from every disclosure. And all of it traceable to Senator Schiff through phone records, journalists' notes, and his own statements. But the leaks are only the first part of this investigation. We also need to discuss how Senator Schiff was financially compromised by foreign powers. Specifically, we need to talk about Edbug Chinese intelligence operations and $214 in campaign donations that originated from Beijing. She reached for her second folder labeled Foreign Financial Flows. Buck Network. Adam Schiff, who'd been sitting in stunned silence through most of the presentation, finally found his voice. This is outrageous. Ed Buck was a legitimate Democratic donor. I had no knowledge of any. You had no knowledge. Tulsi interrupted, her voice sharp. Senator, you attended parties at Ed Buck's apartment. You met with him personally at least 6 times. Your staff vetted him as a major donor. You posed for photographs with him and you took $200 1,000 from him over 15 years. You're telling this committee you had no knowledge of where his money came from. She opened the second folder. Let's talk about Ed Buck. Let's talk about Chinese intelligence. And let's talk about why you consistently voted to protect Chinese interests while taking their money through intermediaries. Tulsi opened the second folder with the same methodical precision she'd used for the first. Ed Buck was a name that made everyone in the room uncomfortable. A convicted serial killer who had been a major Democratic donor. But what Tulsi was about to reveal would show that Buck's crimes went far beyond what had been prosecuted. Ed Buck was convicted in 2021 of drug-related deaths of 2 young men. GML Moore in 2017 and Timothy Dean in 2019. He was sentenced to 30 years in federal prison for those crimes. But the FBI investigation into Buck uncovered something else. Something that the Justice Department at the time chose not to pursue. Something that the intelligence community has now confirmed through financial forensics and signals intelligence. She displayed corporate registration documents and financial records. Ed Buck owned multiple pharmaceutical supply companies. On their face, these were legitimate businesses importing medical supplies and equipment. But FBI financial forensics conducted as part of the murder investigation found something unusual about Buck's business income. Tulsi projected a complex financial flowchart. Between 2008 and 2020, Buck's companies received approximately $47 million in revenue. That's a substantial pharmaceutical supply business. But when FBI traced where that revenue came from, they found a troubling pattern. $12.3 million from Sond International, a Chinese medical supply company with documented ties to the Ministry of State Security. $8.7 million from Shanghai Biotech Holdings, another Chinese entity linked to PLA Intelligence Services. $6.20 $2 million from entities that FBI traced through multiple shell companies back to sources in Beijing. $19.8 million from legitimate domestic sources totaled $27.2 million of Ed Buck's $47 million in business revenue came from Chinese government-linked entities. Senator Cotton leaned forward. Director Gabbard, are you saying Ed Buck's pharmaceutical businesses were being used to funnel Chinese intelligence money into the United States? That's exactly what I'm saying. Senator Cotton, Buck's businesses were what the intelligence community calls a cutout. An intermediary used to disguise the true source of funds. Chinese entities would pay Buck's companies for pharmaceutical supplies at inflated prices. Buck would then use those proceeds to make political donations. The Chinese money was laundered through what appeared to be legitimate business transactions. She displayed donation records. Between 2004 and 2019, Ed Buck made $487 in political donations to Democratic candidates and committees. Of that total, $214 went to Adam Schiff's various campaign committees. That makes Schiff the single largest recipient of Ed Buck's donations. Tulsi pulled out a detailed donation timeline. Let me show you the timeline of Buck's donations to Senator Schiff. 2004 Fort 800 2008 9200 2010 15 000 2012 18500 2014 23.000 2016 31 inches 000 2018 52 500 2019 60.000 stopped after FBI investigation became public totaled 214.000 over 15 years. She displayed bank records. Now let's overlay when Buck received money from Chinese sources. 2004 received 1.2 M from Sond, donated 4,800 to Schiff. 2008 received 1.8 from Shanghai Biotech, donated $9.200 to Schiff. 2010 received 2.1 meters from Chinese sources, donated $15 to Xi. 2012 received 2.4 M from Chinese sources, donated $18,500 to Schiff. 2016 received 3.8 millimeters from Chinese sources, donated 31.000 ERS to Schiff. 2018 received 4.2 in them from Chinese sources, donated $52,500 to Schiff. The pattern is clear. Chinese money comes in, donations to Schiff go up. This wasn't random. This was a systematic operation to funnel Chinese intelligence money to an American congressman who sat on the Intelligence Committee. Senator Marco Rubio's voice was tight with anger. Director, did Senator Schiff know the source of Buck's money? That's the question FBI is investigating. But we have circumstantial evidence suggesting he should have known something was wrong. Tulsi pulled out what appeared to be photographs and meeting logs. First, Senator Schiff had an unusually close relationship with Buck. Most donors write checks and maybe attend fundraisers. But Schiff met privately with Buck at least 6 times between 2016 and 2019. They had dinner together. Buck attended events at Schiff's home. Schiff visited Buck's apartment, the same apartment where the murders later occurred. Second, Schiff's staff conducted opposition research on Buck in 2016 as part of normal donor vetting. That research would have uncovered that Buck had no obvious source of significant wealth. He wasn't a tech entrepreneur. He wasn't an heir to a fortune. He wasn't a successful investor. His wealth came from pharmaceutical supply companies that most vetting reports would flag as unusual for someone donating at his level. Third, and most damning, we have an email from Schiff's campaign finance director to Schiff himself. Dated March 2017, she displayed the email on screen to Adam Schiff from campaign finance director. Subject: Ed Buck donation. Congressman Ed Buck wants to donate $25 to your campaign. This would make him one of our largest donors this cycle. However, I have some concerns. 1. His wealth source is unclear. His pharmaceutical businesses don't seem large enough to support donations at this level. 2. He's very insistent on private meetings with you to discuss China policy. 3. Some of his business partners appear to be based in China, which could create optics issues. Do you want me to accept this donation or should we decline and maintain distance? Schiff's response: accept the donation. Schedule the China policy meeting. Ed has been a loyal supporter and I value his input on foreign policy matters. He was told there were concerns about Buck's money. He was told Buck's wealth source was unclear. He was told Buck had Chinese business partners and he took the money anyway and agreed to meet about China policy. Representative Raja Krishna Murthy looked troubled. Director Gabbard, you mentioned China policy. Did Senator Schiff's voting record change after receiving these donations? Yes, Congressman, significantly. Let me show you the correlation. Tulsi displayed a comprehensive voting analysis. Prior to 2016, before receiving large donations from Buck, Adam Schiff had a mixed voting record on China. He supported some tough on China measures, opposed others, generally voted with Democratic caucus consensus. But starting in 2016, after Buck's donations increased substantially, Schiff's China voting record changed dramatically. 2016 voted against legislation restricting Chinese investment in U.S. technology companies. 2017 voted against tariffs on Chinese steel and aluminum. 2018 opposed restrictions on Chinese telecommunications companies ZTE Huawei accessing U.S. markets. 2019 voted against bipartisan legislation to counter Chinese influence operations in U.S. universities. 2019 opposed restrictions on Chinese acquisition of U.S. agricultural land. 2020 voted against enhanced scrutiny of Chinese companies listed on U.S. stock exchanges. 2021 opposed legislation restricting TikTok unless Chinese ownership divested. Every single vote benefited Chinese strategic interests. Every vote came after receiving substantial donations from Ed Buck, whose money was traced to Chinese sources. Senator Cotton stood up, his face red. Director Gabbard, let me understand this. A sitting member of the House Intelligence Committee took $200 $214,000 from a donor whose money came from Chinese intelligence sources, was specifically warned about the donor's Chinese connections, and then consistently voted in ways that benefited China. That's what the evidence shows. Senator Cotton, that's not just corruption. That's being a Chinese agent. Tulsi's voice remained calm and professional. That determination is for investigators and prosecutors to make, Senator. What I can tell you is that the intelligence community has confirmed the money trail, documented the voting pattern, and established that foreign adversaries were aware of the relationship. She pulled out another NSA intercept. This is from July 2018. 2 Chinese Ministry of State security officers discussing their operations in the United States. MSS Officer 1. Our investment in the Buck operation continues to yield results. The congressman on the Intelligence Committee has voted favorably on all matters of interest to us. MSS Officer 2. He knows the source of the funds. MSS Officer 1. He has been made aware through indirect channels that supporting our interests brings continued financial support. He is sophisticated enough to understand the arrangement without explicit discussion. This is preferable plausible deniability if exposed. MSS Officer 2 and his access to classified information. MSS Officer 1. Excellent. His position on Intelligence Committee provides him access to assessments of our capabilities. His media leaks have been valuable for understanding American collection methods, and his voting record protects our strategic interests. He is effectively an asset whether he acknowledges it or not. The hearing room was in chaos again. Republicans were calling for immediate investigation. Democrats were trying to defend Schiff while looking deeply uncomfortable. The media was having a field day. Adam Schiff sat frozen, his face pale, his hands shaking slightly as he clutched the edge of the table. Tulsi continued relentlessly. Senator Schiff, you spent years accusing President Trump of being compromised by Russia. You went on television hundreds of times claiming to have seen evidence of collusion. You called me a Russian asset for questioning U.S. foreign policy. You wrapped yourself in the American flag and positioned yourself as the ultimate patriot defending America from foreign threats. But the intelligence shows you were the one compromised. You took money from Chinese intelligence cutouts. You voted to benefit Chinese interests. You leaked classified information that helped both Russian and Chinese intelligence understand American capabilities. You were the foreign agent all along. She leaned forward slightly. You accused others of what you were actually doing. That's not just hypocrisy, Senator. That's psychological projection, and it's about to result in federal charges. She reached for her third folder. But we're not done yet. We still need to discuss the FISA abuses. Because while you were taking Chinese money and leaking to benefit Russia, you were also systematically violating the constitutional rights of American citizens by signing FISA warrants you knew were based on false information. Let's talk about what you knew about the Steele dossier when you knew it, and how you proceeded anyway to spy on American citizens. Tulsi opened the third folder and the mood in the room shifted again. The leaks had been about national security. The Chinese money had been about corruption. But FISA abuse was about constitutional rights. The Fourth Amendment protections that every American has against unreasonable searches and surveillance. And Adam Schiff had violated those rights knowingly, deliberately, and repeatedly. Let's establish the timeline first. Tulsi began displaying a chronological chart on the screens. Because the timeline proves criminal intent. It proves Senator Schiff knew the Steele dossier was false intelligence, knew the FISA warrants were based on that false intelligence, and proceeded to sign them anyway. She pointed to the first entry on the timeline. August 2016. FBI receives the Steele dossier. A collection of intelligence reports allegedly based on Russian sources compiled by former British intelligence officer Christopher Steele. Paid for by the Democratic National Committee and the Clinton campaign through the law firm Perkins Coie and opposition research firm Fusion GPS. August 15, 2016. FBI leadership, including Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, briefed the Gang of Eight, the 8 members of Congress, who received the most sensitive intelligence briefings. This includes Congressman Adam Schiff, then the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee. In this briefing, FBI informs the Gang of Eight that the Steele dossier has been received and that they are evaluating its credibility. FBI also notes that Steele has been a reliable source in the past, but that the dossier makes extraordinary claims that will require verification. Tulsi pulled out declassified briefing notes. These are notes from that August 2016 briefing. Now declassified. Let me read a key passage. FBI advised that the Steele reporting contains salacious and unverified allegations. Source: Christopher Steele is former MI6 but is being paid by political opposition research firm. Dossier alleges Russian compromise of Trump campaign but lacks corroborating evidence. FBI will investigate claims before determining whether FISA surveillance is appropriate. She looked up. Senator Schiff was told in August 2016 that the dossier was salacious and unverified. That Steele was being paid by political operatives. And that the claims lacked corroborating evidence. He was warned from the very beginning that this intelligence was questionable. She moved to the next timeline entry. October 2016. FBI applies for its first FISA warrant to surveil Carter Page, a former Trump campaign advisor. The application relies heavily on the Steele dossier. Under FISA procedures, the Gang of Eight must be notified of significant FISA applications and their leadership can object. October 2016. Congressman Schiff is briefed on the visa application. FBI provides him with the application materials which reference the Steele dossier as primary evidence. Tulsi displayed what appeared to be internal FBI communications. These are FBI emails from October 2016 obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests and recently declassified. Let me read one from an FBI agent to leadership. We briefed Congressman Schiff today on the Page FISA application. He asked specifically about the Steele material. We informed him that we have been unable to verify most of Steele's claims and that we have concerns about the dossier's reliability. We recommended proceeding with caution. Schiff's response was that the feces should proceed regardless because Trump is a threat to national security and we can't let concerns about source reliability prevent us from investigating potential Russian compromise. He was explicitly told that the FBI couldn't verify the dossier and he said to proceed anyway. Senator Tom Cotton interrupted. Director Gabbard, under FISA procedures, can the Gang of Eight object to a FISA application? Not formally, Senator, but they can register concerns that would typically cause FBI to reconsider. If a Gang of Eight member raises serious objections, FBI generally treats that as a significant warning. But Schiff didn't object. He encouraged proceeding despite FBI's own concerns about reliability. She moved to the next timeline entry. January 2017. FBI receives information from multiple sources indicating the Steele dossier is likely Russian disinformation. Steele's primary source tells FBI that Steele misrepresented and exaggerated the information provided. The Intelligence Community Inspector General notifies the Gang of Eight that the dossier's reliability is now seriously in question. Tulsi displayed another declassified memo. This is the Inspector General's notification to the Gang of Eight dated January 12, 2017. Recent information indicates that the Steele dossier may contain Russian disinformation. Steele's primary subsource has stated that Steele exaggerated and misrepresented the information provided. The subsource describes the information as hearsay and rumor rather than verified intelligence. We recommend reviewing any ongoing investigations or surveillance based on the Steele material. She looked at Schiff. You received this memo, Senator. You were explicitly told the dossier might be Russian disinformation, the very thing you claimed to be fighting against. You were told Steele had exaggerated and misrepresented the information. And what did you do? She displayed a TV transcript. 2 weeks later on January 25, 2017, you appeared on NBC's Meet the Press and said, and I quote, "I have seen evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia that is more than circumstantial. The evidence is substantial. I cannot share classified details. But I can tell you that the intelligence community has credible information about Russian compromise of the Trump campaign. You went on television and vouched for intelligence you'd been told was likely false. You lied to the American people about the credibility of the evidence." Senator Marco Rubio spoke up. Director, what happened with the FISA warrants after the Inspector General warned about the dossier's reliability? They were renewed, Senator, 3 more times. And each time the Gang of Eight was notified and given the opportunity to raise concerns. Let me show you the timeline. April 2017. FISA warrant on Carter Page renewed for the first time. Gang of Eight notified. Schiff raises no objections. July 2017. Second renewal. Gang of Eight notified. FBI includes footnote noting questions about dossier reliability. Schiff still raises no objections. January 2018. Third renewal. By this point, FBI has definitively established that much of the Steele dossier is false or unverifiable. Gang of Eight is notified of concerns. Schiff still raises no objections. And through all of this, through 3 renewals, despite mounting evidence the dossier was false, Senator Schiff continued appearing on television, claiming he'd seen evidence of collusion. Tulsi pulled out a compilation of TV clips. Between January 2017 and March 2019, Senator Schiff appeared on CNN, MSNBC, NBC, CBS, and ABC combined 237 times. In those appearances, he referenced evidence of Trump-Russia collusion 412 times. He claimed to have seen classified information supporting collusion 89 times. He vouched for the credibility of the intelligence 100 times, all while knowing the primary source of that intelligence. The Steele dossier had been determined to be unreliable, exaggerated, and possibly Russian disinformation. She displayed one particularly damaging clip. This is from March 2017. You were asked by Chuck Todd on Meet the Press whether you'd seen direct evidence of collusion. Your response: Chuck, I can't go into classified details. But I can tell you that I have seen evidence that is more than circumstantial and in my view is very much worthy of investigation. The intelligence community has information that would concern any American about potential coordination between the Trump campaign and Russian intelligence. That was a lie. Senator Schiff, you had no such evidence. The intelligence community had told you the dossier was unreliable. The FBI had told you they couldn't verify the claims. The Inspector General had warned you it might be Russian disinformation. But you went on national television and lied about it. Representative Jim Himes, one of the Democratic members of the Intelligence Committee, asked quietly, Director Gabbard, what about the Mueller investigation? Didn't that find evidence? The Mueller investigation, which had access to far more resources and information than Congressman Schiff did, concluded in March 2019 that it did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities. Mueller had subpoena power wiretaps, cooperating witnesses, and 2 years to investigate, and he found no coordination. Yet, Senator Schiff continued claiming for another 6 months that he'd seen evidence of collusion. Tulsi pulled out more documents. But the FISA abuse isn't just about lying to the public. It's about violating constitutional rights. The Fourth Amendment protects Americans from unreasonable searches. FISA warrants are supposed to be based on probable cause. When you sign a FISA warrant knowing the evidence is false or unreliable, you're violating someone's constitutional rights. She displayed legal analysis documents. Carter Page, the target of these FISA warrants, has filed a lawsuit against the government for Fourth Amendment violations. His attorneys have obtained evidence showing that 1. The FBI knew the Steele dossier was unreliable before the first warrant. 2. The FBI omitted exculpatory information from FISA applications. 3. The FBI made material misrepresentations to the FISA court. Congressional oversight members, including Schiff, were aware of these problems and didn't stop it. Senator Schiff didn't just fail to object to these unconstitutional warrants. He actively encouraged them. He went on television to defend them. He attacked anyone who questioned them as being agents of Russia or obstructing justice. She looked directly at Schiff. You accused me of being a Russian asset senator. But you were the one pushing Russian disinformation. The Steele dossier, that the intelligence community told you was unreliable. You were the one using that false intelligence to violate Americans' constitutional rights. You were the one lying to the public about evidence you knew didn't exist. You wrapped yourself in the Constitution while trampling on it. You claimed to defend democracy while abusing government surveillance powers for political purposes. You accused others of the very crimes you were committing. She closed the third folder. Mr. Chairman, we've now covered 3 major categories of misconduct. 1. Systematic leaking of classified information. 127 instances. $180 million in damage. Foreign adversaries benefiting. 2. Foreign financial corruption. 28 times C$5 from Chinese intelligence. Cut out. Ed Buck voting record benefiting China. NSA intercepts confirming foreign awareness. 3. FISA abuse knowingly supporting surveillance warrants based on false intelligence violating constitutional rights lying to the public about evidence. But there's one more category we need to address. We need to discuss the Ukraine connection. How Senator Schiff used the Ukraine impeachment to protect defense contractor kickbacks and how he made millions from the very foreign aid he was supposedly defending on principle. She reached for the 4th folder labeled Ukraine Defense Contractor Network. Adam Schiff's lawyer was frantically pulling at his sleeve trying to get him to invoke his Fifth Amendment rights and leave the hearing. But Schiff, who'd built his entire career on never backing down, sat frozen as his entire world collapsed around him. And Tulsi Gabbard, the combat veteran he'd smeared as a Russian asset, wasn't done destroying him yet. Tulsi opened the fourth folder with the same methodical precision she'd used throughout the hearing. But this time, there was something different in her expression. Something personal. Because Adam Schiff had led the first impeachment of President Trump over a phone call about Ukraine aid. He'd positioned himself as the noble defender of Ukrainian democracy, and Tulsi was about to prove it was all about money. Senator Schiff, in December 2019, you managed the House's impeachment of President Trump. The central allegation was that Trump had withheld military aid to Ukraine to pressure President Zelensky into investigating Hunter Biden and Burisma Holdings. You argued passionately that this was a betrayal of American interests and Ukrainian democracy. Do you remember your closing argument? Schiff, still not speaking on advice of counsel, stared at the table. Tulsi pulled up video footage from the impeachment trial. Let me refresh your memory. You said we are talking about our national security at stake. We are talking about standing up for an ally against Russian aggression. We are talking about the principle that we do not condition military aid on political favors. This is about protecting democracy. Ukrainian democracy and American democracy. Very stirring, very principled, but let's talk about what it was really about. She displayed campaign finance records. Between 2017 and 2024, defense contractors donated $3 million to your various campaign committees and affiliated PACs. That's an extraordinary amount from a single industry sector. Let me break down the top donors. Rithon Technologies $680, Lead Martin $490, Northrop Grumman $410, General Dynamics $380, Boeing Defense $340, L3 Harris Technologies $290.000, B Systems $260, other defense contractors $550, total $3.4 million from companies whose primary business is selling weapons and defense systems to foreign allies, including Ukraine. Senator Tom Cotton leaned forward. Director Gabbard, those are all legitimate companies. Political donations from defense contractors aren't illegal. You're absolutely right, Senator Cotton, but let me show you the pattern of when those donations increased and what legislation Senator Schiff was pushing at the time. She displayed a timeline with donations and legislative actions. 2017 to defense contractor donations to Schiff. $80. 2017 legislative activity. Schiff pushes for $350 million in lethal aid to Ukraine. Obama had refused. Lethal aid only providing non-lethal assistance. 2018 defense contractor donations increased to $410. 2018 Schiff advocates for $500 million. Ukraine security assistance package specifically including Javelin anti-tank missiles made by Rithon and Lockheed Martin. 2019. Defense contractor donations jumped to $740. 2019. Schiff leads impeachment specifically focused on Trump withholding Ukraine military aid. 2019. After impeachment, Ukraine aid package of $3.9 billion passes, including major weapon systems. 2021 to defense contractor donations average $650 per year legislative activity. Schiff consistently pushes for maximum Ukraine aid, opposes any conditions or accountability measures. The pattern is clear. The more he pushed Ukraine aid, the more defense contractors donated to him. Representative Raja Krishna Murthy looked troubled. Director, are you suggesting the impeachment was motivated by financial interests? I'm saying the evidence suggests Senator Schiff had strong financial incentives to ensure Ukraine aid continued flowing because the companies providing that aid were funding his political career. But it gets worse. Tulsi pulled out business records. Senator Schiff's wife, Eve Schiff, owns a consulting firm called Schiff Advisory Group, registered in Delaware in 2016. According to business filings, the firm provides strategic consulting services to international development organizations and defense sector clients. Between 2017 and 2024, Schiff Advisory Group received $427 in consulting fees. Let me show you who paid them. International Renaissance Foundation, Soros-funded organization active in Ukraine. $85 Atlantic Council think tank heavily involved in Ukraine policy. $72 National Democratic Institute USAID-funded organization working in Ukraine. $68 Center for Strategic and International Studies Defense Policy think tank. $54 4.000 consultants with ties to Ukrainian government. $92 Consultants with ties to defense contractors. $56. She looked up. Schiff's firm made $427 from organizations and individuals connected to Ukraine policy and defense contracting. This is while Adam Schiff was the most vocal advocate for Ukraine aid in Congress. While he was managing the impeachment over Ukraine aid. While he was pushing billions in military assistance that would benefit the very defense contractors whose consultants were paying his wife's firm. Senator Marco Rubio's voice was hard. Director, did Senator Schiff disclose these conflicts of interest during the impeachment? No, Senator. House ethics rules require members to disclose any financial interest that could be affected by legislation they're working on. Senator Schiff should have disclosed that his wife's consulting firm was receiving income from Ukraine-related organizations and defense sector consultants. He didn't. Tulsi pulled out more damaging evidence. But we have more than just the payment records. We have communications showing coordination. She displayed what appeared to be emails obtained through subpoena. This is an email from a consultant at the Atlantic Council to Schiff's firm dated March 2019. 2 months before the Trump-Zelensky phone call that sparked the impeachment. Thank you for the productive conversation regarding Ukraine security assistance. As discussed, Atlantic Council is prepared to engage Schiff Advisory Group for $25 in consulting services related to Ukraine policy analysis. We believe Congressman Schiff's continued advocacy for robust Ukraine aid is essential for regional security. Our defense industry partners share this view and are grateful for his leadership. We hope your firm's analysis will support continued congressional commitment to Ukraine assistance. Tulsi looked at the email on screen. They're explicitly linking payment to Schiff's firm with Adam Schiff's advocacy for Ukraine aid. This isn't just consulting. This is payment for influence. She pulled out another email. This one is from a defense contractor consultant to Schiff dated November 2019 during the impeachment inquiry. Our clients at Raytheon and Lockheed appreciate the congressman's forceful defense of Ukraine security assistance during the impeachment proceedings. The continued flow of Javelin missiles and other systems to Ukraine is critical for both regional security and our business relationships. We'd like to engage Schiff Advisory Group for an additional consulting project related to NATO procurement policy. Fee $30. Let me know if this works. Tulsi sat down the email. They're thanking him for his impeachment advocacy because it protects weapon sales to Ukraine and they're paying his wife's firm as a reward. That's not consulting. That's a kickback scheme. But the most damaging evidence was yet to come. Now, let me show you NSA intelligence that connects all of this. She pulled out another signals intelligence report. This is an intercepted communication between 2 Ukrainian government officials dated January 2020 during the impeachment trial. The communication was lawfully collected under FISA as part of monitoring of foreign government officials. Ukrainian official 1. The American congressman leading impeachment is very helpful to our interests. The impeachment pressure ensures Trump will not withhold military aid again. Ukrainian official 2. He is motivated by principle or by interest. Ukrainian official 1. His wife's consulting firm receives payments from our allies in Washington. His campaign receives substantial support from defense contractors. The military aid benefits both Ukraine and his financial supporters. It is perfect alignment of interests. He believes he fights for democracy. He also profits from the fight. Both can be true. Ukrainian official 2. Should we maintain the financial connections? Ukrainian official 1. Yes. The consulting payments to his wife continue. The defense contractors continue their support. As long as American military aid flows to Ukraine, everyone benefits. He is useful ally. The hearing room erupted. Republicans were calling for immediate criminal investigation. Democrats looked shell-shocked. The media was in absolute chaos. Tulsi's voice cut through the noise. Senator Schiff, you impeached a president. You put the country through a constitutional crisis. You claimed it was about principle. About defending democracy. About protecting Ukraine from Russian aggression. But the intelligence shows it was about money. It was about protecting the defense contractor donations funding your campaigns. It was about protecting the consulting fees flowing to your wife's firm. It was about maintaining the Ukraine aid pipeline that benefited your financial backers. She leaned forward. You wrapped yourself in patriotism. You claimed to be defending democracy. But you were defending your bank account. The Ukrainians knew it. The defense contractors knew it. The intelligence community knew it. And now the American people know it. She closed the fourth folder and sat back. Mr. Chairman, I've now presented evidence of 4 major categories of federal crimes committed by Senator Adam Schiff. Category 1. Espionage. 127 instances of unauthorized disclosure of classified information resulting in $180 million in damages. Compromise of 7 human sources and benefit to foreign adversaries. Category 2. Foreign agent violations. Accepting $214 from Chinese intelligence cutout. Edbuck voting in Chinese interests. Failing to register as a foreign agent. Category 3. FISA abuse. Knowingly supporting surveillance warrants based on false intelligence violating Fourth Amendment rights of American citizens lying to the public about evidence. Category 4. Corruption. Accepting $3.40 $4 million from defense contractors while pushing Ukraine aid wives firm receiving $427 from Ukraine-related entities using impeachment to protect financial interests. The evidence includes phone records, financial forensics, NSA intercepts, declassified FBI documents, journalist testimony, and Senator Schiff's own statements. The criminal exposure is substantial. We're looking at violations of the Espionage Act, FAR, honest services fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and constitutional rights violations. The Department of Justice has been reviewing this evidence for several months. I expect indictments to be filed within the next 2 weeks. She paused, then looked directly at Adam Schiff. Senator, in 2019, you called me a Russian asset. You questioned my patriotism. You tried to destroy my career because I dared to question the endless wars and foreign interventions that you profit from. You smeared a combat veteran as disloyal to her country. You did this while leaking classified information that helped Russia, while taking Chinese money, while violating constitutional rights, while profiting from foreign aid you claimed to support on principle. I've been waiting 6 years for this moment. 6 years to clear my name. 6 years to expose who you really are. And now with the full authority of the United States intelligence community behind me, I can tell you and the American people the truth. You are a liar. You are a leaker. You are corrupt. You are compromised by foreign powers and you are going to federal prison. The hearing room was in absolute pandemonium. But through it all, Tulsi Gabbard sat calmly. Her folders closed. Her case made. She'd been called a traitor by this man. She'd been smeared and slandered. She'd been accused of disloyalty by someone who was actually selling out his country. And now, finally, justice was coming. 48 hours later, the images played on every network in a continuous loop. FBI agents arriving at Adam Schiff's Senate office at 6 a.m. with an arrest warrant. The perp walk as he was escorted out of the Hart Senate office building in handcuffs. His carefully crafted image as America's defender against foreign threats replaced by the reality of a corrupt politician who'd sold out his country. The booking photo that would define his legacy. No longer the serious, concerned expression he'd perfected for cable news appearances, but the hollow-eyed look of a man who knew his life was over. CNN breaking FBI arrest. Senator Schiff on 58 federal charges. MSNBC. Former intelligence chairman charged with espionage. Foreign agent violations. Fox News. Schiff arrested 127 classified leaks. Chinese money FISA fraud alleged. The New York Times Senator Adam Schiff indicted in sweeping national security case. The 217-page federal indictment became the most downloaded legal document in American history. The evidence was even more comprehensive than what Tulsi had presented at the hearing. Phone records documenting every one of 127 leaks. NSA intercepts showing Russian and Chinese intelligence discussing useful idiot. Financial forensics tracing Ed Buck's money to Chinese sources. Emails showing coordination between Schiff's wife's firm and defense contractors. Declassified FBI warnings about Steele. Dossier that Schiff ignored. Recordings of Schiff lying on television about evidence he knew didn't exist. The charges: espionage and classified information. 127 counts of unauthorized disclosure of classified information. 18 U.S.C. Charters 198 12 counts of conspiracy to disclose classified information. 8 counts of obstruction of justice for lying about leaks. Foreign agent violations. 6 counts of acting as unregistered foreign agent China. 4 counts of conspiracy to defraud the United States. 3 counts of making false statements about foreign contacts. FISA and constitutional violations. 8 counts of conspiracy to deprive citizens of constitutional rights. 4 counts of making false statements to FISA court. 6 counts of obstruction of justice in FISA investigations. Corruption. 12 counts of honest services fraud. 8 counts of wire fraud. 6 counts of campaign finance violations. 4 counts of money laundering. Total 210 federal felony counts. Each classified leak was charged separately. Each FISA renewal was charged separately. Each false statement was charged separately. The prosecution had learned from past cases they weren't taking any chances. Political fallout. California Governor Gavin Newsom, facing pressure from all sides, called for Schiff's resignation. When Schiff refused, the California state legislature began recall proceedings, only the third time in state history. A U.S. senator faced recall. The Democratic Party was in crisis. Schiff had been their star prosecutor, their Russia investigation champion, their impeachment manager. Now he was a foreign agent who'd leaked classified information and taken Chinese money. Nancy Pelosi, who'd championed Schiff's career, issued a terse statement. These are serious allegations that require due process. Translation: I'm not defending this. Chuck Schumer removed Schiff from the Intelligence Committee immediately and from all other committees pending trial. Prominent Democrats who'd appeared with Schiff on cable news for years scrambled to distance themselves. Eric Swalwell, who'd sat next to Schiff on Intelligence Committee, suddenly couldn't recall working closely with him. The arraignment. Federal Judge Tanya Chutkan, an Obama appointee with a reputation for being tough on national security crimes, presided over Schiff's arraignment in Washington, D.C. Federal Court. Prosecutor: Your Honor, the defendant stands accused of one of the most comprehensive betrayals of national security in American history. He leaked classified information 127 times, compromising sources and methods, benefiting foreign adversaries and causing a $180 million in damages. He took money from Chinese intelligence operations while sitting on the House Intelligence Committee. He violated Americans' constitutional rights by supporting FISA warrants he knew were based on false information. He used the impeachment process to protect his own financial interests. He has access to foreign funds through the entities that paid him. He has demonstrated a pattern of deception spanning decades. He has shown no remorse and continues to claim these charges are political persecution. The government considers him a flight risk and requests he be held without bail. Defense attorney: Your Honor, Senator Schiff has served in public office for over 20 years. He has never failed to appear for any official proceeding. These charges are politically motivated, brought by an administration hostile to Democrats and orchestrated by a DNI who has a personal vendetta against my client. We request reasonable bail with electronic monitoring. Judge Chutkan: I've reviewed the indictment and supporting evidence. The allegations involve systematic compromise of classified information, documented financial ties to foreign intelligence operations, and abuse of constitutional processes. The evidence presented includes NSA intercepts, phone records, financial forensics, and the defendant's own statements. The court finds that the defendant poses a serious flight risk given the severity of charges, the evidence of foreign financial support, and the potential for life imprisonment if convicted. Bail is denied. The defendant is remanded to federal custody pending trial. Adam Schiff, the man who'd sent others to prison, who'd led impeachments, who presented himself as the ultimate authority on national security, was sent to federal detention center in Alexandria, Virginia, where he would await trial. The trial 8 months later. United States vs. Adam Schiff began in Washington, D.C. federal court. Judge Reggie Walton, a George W. Wood Bush appointee with extensive experience in national security cases, presided. The trial lasted 11 weeks. The prosecution presented a systematic, devastating case. Weeks. 1. The leaks. NSA analysts testified about foreign intercepts. Journalists testified granted immunity about Schiff as source. Phone company representatives authenticated call records. Intelligence officials detailed the damage from each leak. Defense had no rebuttal. The evidence was overwhelming. Weeks 4 to 5. The Chinese money. FBI forensic accountants traced every dollar from China to Edbook to Schiff. NSA analysts presented intercepts of Chinese officials discussing Schiff. Campaign finance experts showed voting pattern correlation. Defense tried to claim Schiff didn't know Buck's money source. His own emails undermined this. Week 67. The FISA fraud. FBI agents testified about warnings given to Schiff about Steele dossier. Intelligence officials presented timeline of when Schiff knew dossier was false. Constitutional law experts testified about Fourth Amendment violations. Video compilation showed Schiff lying on TV about evidence. Defense claimed he believed the intelligence declassified memos proved he didn't. Weeks 8 to 9. The Ukraine corruption. Defense contractor executives testified about donations. Ukrainian officials granted immunity. Testified about discussing SHIF's financial interests. Wife's consulting firm employees testified about the projects. Email evidence showed explicit quid pro quo. Defense claimed it was legitimate consulting. The emails proved otherwise. Week 10-11. Closing arguments and deliberation. Prosecution closing. Ladies and gentlemen, Adam Schiff spent decades presenting himself as a patriot, as a defender of democracy, as someone who put country over party. But the evidence shows he was a fraud. He leaked classified information 127 times, helping foreign adversaries while claiming to fight them. He took Chinese money while accusing others of foreign influence. He violated constitutional rights while claiming to defend the Constitution. He profited from foreign aid while claiming to support it on principle. He's not a patriot. He's a criminal. And the evidence proves it beyond any reasonable doubt. Defense closing. The prosecution wants you to believe that Adam Schiff, a man who dedicated his life to public service, suddenly became a traitor. But what they've really shown is a man who disagreed with the Trump administration's policies and exercised his First Amendment right to speak about those disagreements. Every leak they allege was actually a member of Congress informing the public about matters of legitimate concern. Every dollar they trace was a legitimate political donation. Every FISA warrant was supported by intelligence professionals. This is not a criminal case. This is a political persecution and you must acquit. The jury deliberated for 4 days. The verdict. The jury returned on a Thursday afternoon. Judge Walton's courtroom was packed with media, former colleagues and spectators. Has the jury reached a verdict? We have, Your Honor. On count 1, unauthorized disclosure of classified information. How do you find guilty on count 2? Unauthorized disclosure of classified information. How do you find guilty? It continued for 3 hours. The jury had convicted on 197 of 210 counts. Not guilty verdicts came on to 13 counts where evidence was circumstantial rather than direct. Several conspiracy counts where the jury found insufficient proof of agreement. But guilty on everything else. All 127 classified leak charges. Guilty. All foreign agent charges. Guilty. All FISA fraud charges. Guilty. All major corruption charges. Guilty. Adam Schiff sat motionless as the verdicts were read. His face blank, his career and life destroyed. His wife sobbed in the gallery. His adult children looked shell-shocked. The man who'd prosecuted others, who'd led impeachments, who'd presented himself as the ultimate authority on law and national security, had been convicted of being a traitor. Sentencing 4 months later. Judge Reggie Walton delivered the sentence in a courtroom packed with media and spectators. Mr. Schiff, in my 20 years on the federal bench, I have never encountered a defendant who so thoroughly betrayed the public trust while presenting himself as its defender. You were entrusted with the nation's most sensitive secrets, and you leaked them 127 times to benefit your political objectives. You took money from foreign intelligence operations while sitting on the House Intelligence Committee. You violated Americans' constitutional rights while claiming to defend those rights. You used the impeachment process to protect your own financial interests while claiming to protect democracy. What makes your conduct particularly reprehensible is the hypocrisy. You spent years accusing others, including Director Gabbard, of being foreign agents and threats to national security. You wrapped yourself in the flag while betraying everything it represents. You prosecuted others for far lesser crimes while committing far greater ones yourself. You caused $180 million in damages to intelligence operations. You compromised 7 human sources who risked their lives for America. You helped foreign adversaries understand American intelligence methods. You violated the constitutional rights of citizens whose only crime was supporting a president you opposed. And you did it all while sanctimoniously lecturing others about patriotism and the rule of law. The sentencing guidelines suggest 35-45 years. The government has requested the high end. Your attorneys have requested leniency based on your years of public service. But your public service is what makes these crimes worse, not better. You were trusted with power and you abused it. You were given access to secrets and you disclosed them. You took an oath to defend the Constitution and you violated it. This court sentences you as follows. Espionage charges 127 counts. 25 years. Foreign agent violations 12 years consecutive. FISA fraud 10 years consecutive. Corruption charges 8 years concurrent. Total 47 years in federal prison. You will serve at least 85% of this sentence before parole eligibility. Approximately 40 years, given your age of 64. This is effectively a life sentence. You will forfeit all assets obtained through your criminal conduct. Approximately $2.8 million in campaign funds, consulting fees, and other proceeds. You are permanently barred from holding any federal office or security clearance. Mr. Schiff, you spent your career sending others to prison. Now you will spend the rest of your life there yourself. Bailiff the defendant is remanded to the custody of the Bureau of Prisons for Tulsi Gabbard. DNI'd Tulsi Gabbard gave one interview after the conviction to CBS's 60 Minutes for 6 years. Adam Schiff called me a Russian asset. He questioned my loyalty to America. He tried to destroy my career because I dared to question the endless wars and foreign interventions that he and his defense contractor donors profited from. He smeared a combat veteran who'd served in Iraq as being disloyal to her country. But I knew the truth would come out eventually. I knew that someone who accused others so relentlessly of being compromised was probably compromised himself. That's psychological projection, accusing others of what you're actually guilty of. When I became DNI, I had access to all the intelligence. The leaks, the foreign money, the FISA abuses, the corruption. It was all documented. The intelligence community had been building this case for years, but needed the political will to prosecute. I provided that will. This wasn't about revenge, though. I won't pretend his conviction doesn't vindicate me after years of his smears. This was about accountability, about proving that no one, regardless of how powerful, how connected, how skilled at appearing on cable news, is above the law. Adam Schiff betrayed America while claiming to defend it. Now he'll spend the rest of his life in prison. That's not political persecution. That's justice. Her approval ratings remained extraordinarily high. Overall, 73%. Republicans 96%, Independents 71%. Democrats 47%. Even Democrats couldn't deny the evidence. She continued serving as DNI, focusing on rooting out foreign influence operations and holding intelligence community members accountable for abuses. The Schiff case became the definitive example of why intelligence oversight matters and why those who abuse their positions must face consequences for America. Congress passed the Intelligence Accountability and Oversight Reform Act with overwhelming bipartisan support. Mandatory reporting of all member contacts with foreign nationals. Real-time financial disclosure of all income to members and spouses. Enhanced background checks for Intelligence Committee assignments. Automatic removal from classified access upon indictment for national security crimes. Criminal penalty IEs for knowing support of false versus FISA applications. Independent inspectors general for all intelligence committees. The Schiff case became required study at the FBI Academy, CIA training and law schools. It was the definitive case of how power corrupts, how oversight can be abused, and how eventually the truth emerges. Final scene. 2 years later, Tulsi Gabbard sat in her DNI office at Liberty Crossing in Milan, Virginia, reviewing intelligence assessments. Her desk had a single photograph: her army unit in Iraq. Young soldiers, including herself, serving their country far from home. Her phone rang. A reporter asking for comment on Schiff's latest parole request denial. Adam Schiff will serve every day of his sentence. He earned it. Next question. She hung up and returned to her intelligence briefing. Because while one traitor had been brought to justice, there were always more threats to American security. Foreign intelligence services never stopped trying to recruit and compromise American officials. But now those officials knew betray America. And eventually you'll face someone like Tulsi Gabbard. A combat veteran who won't back down. An intelligence professional who knows how to build a case. A patriot who will make sure traitors face justice. Adam Schiff had called her a Russian asset. She'd proven he was the foreign agent all along. The accusation had been projection. The investigation had been thorough. The conviction had been inevitable. The sentence had been just. And America was safer for